Shalom to all. Today's office is Nedarim Daf Samach Gimel. We are starting Samach Beis Amud Beis, 4 lines up from the bottom at the 2 dots. And today's daf is sponsored Leilu Nishmas Mars Miriam Sarah Bas Yaakov Moshe her Neshama should have an Aliyah, and Leilu Nishmas Rabbi Chmil Mordechai Ben Reb Chaim his Neshama should have an Aliyah. So Mishnah told us that if a person made a neder and he said Ad HaGeshamim or he said Ad Shehu Geshamim, so his neder is Chal Ad Sheter Revi'ah Shniya until the second rainfall actually comes down. Rav Shimon Gamliel and Rav Chulu, Rav Shimon Gamliel had said that it's up until the time period of the second rainfall, but the rain doesn't actually have to come down. Now Rav Zera says, Machlokes, the whole Machlokes between the Tanakam and Rav Shimon Gamliel is the Amar, where he said Ad HaGeshamim until the rains. Aval Amar, but if he said Ad HaGeshem until the rain, so then Ad Zman Gesham Ka Amar, he's saying up until the time of the rainfall, but not the actual rainfall itself. Now Samach Gimel Amar Aleph on top, the Gemara asks a very long question. Basically, we have a brayso that says, Ezu Zman Ashar Revi'ah, what is the normal time of the rain? So Abachira, the first rainfall is Begimel on the 3rd of Cheshvan. Beinanes, the middle one, or the second rainfall is Beshiva on the 7th of Mar Cheshvan. Afela, the later one, the last one, is Be'esrim Shleisha on the 23rd. Divrei Meir, that's Meir's opinion. Rabbi Yehuda says Beshiva, Ubeshiva Asar, Ube'esrim Shleisha. It's on the 7th, the 17th, and the 23rd. Rabbi Yossi says Beshiva Asar, Be'esrim Shleisha, Ubechedesh Kislev. It's on the 17th, the 23rd, and on Rosh Chodesh Kislev. And Rabbi Yossi also says the individuals, they don't fast until Rosh Chodesh Kislev comes. This is referring to when there wasn't enough rain in Eretz Yisrael, so they would institute a public fast day, but before an official public fast day was instituted, so the Yechidim, the individuals, special, unique people, they would fast on their own. And that's what Yossi is talking about over here, Yechidim fasting by Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Now, for Amina Allah, we said on this, especially Revi'ah Rishayna, we understand that we need to know the time period of the Revi'ah Rishayna L'Shoel, because we need to know when to start asking for rain, meaning when do we start saying the same Talamatar. Shlishis, we need to know the third time period of rain, Lis Anus, because we need to know when to start fasting if there isn't rain by then. Alashni Elamai, what do we need to know about the second rainfall for? Bam Reb Zeir says, L'Neder, in regards to someone who makes a neder Ad HaGeshem, then now we know when his neder is Chal up until. Now we're still in the process of developing this question. And Amir Allah, we said on this, Kaman Azal Hadatanya, who's the following brayso like? Rav Shimon Gamliel Rav Shimon Gamliel says, Geshamim Sherdu Shiva Yamim Zecharia Zeh, if rain fell 7 consecutive days, one after another, Atamayna Behen Revi'ah Rishayna Ushniya, you should count them as the first and second Revi'ah. This is Rav Shimon Gamliel trying to convince the Chachamim that if it rains for 7 days straight, so the last day of that rainfall should be considered the second Revi'ah. And who's that brayso like? Kiman Rabbi Yossi. It's like Rabbi Yossi, because Rabbi Yossi says that there's a 7-day difference in between the first and second Revi'ah. And now here's the question. Reb Zeira had just said that in the situation where the fellow worded his neder Ad HaGeshem, then everyone agrees it's until the time of the Revi'ah Shniya, not the actual rainfall. Now this brayso is clearly not like that, because Rav Shimon Gamliel is trying to convince the Chachamim to agree with him in the above mentioned case, and the case is talking about where it's actually raining. But there's no need for that according to Reb Zeira, because once again, we had just said Reb Zeira holds that they agree with each other, that if a person said Ad HaGeshem, it doesn't actually have to be raining. We're talking about the time period of the second rainfall. And we're assuming right now that the person said Ad HaGeshem and not Ad HaGeshamim, because Ad HaGeshem is the more normative way to word the neder. So the Gemara answers no. Hahud Amar Ad HaGeshamim. This is referring to a situation where he said Ad HaGeshamim, and therefore we would have this machlokes between them. Ad HaGeshamim doesn't mean until the actual rainfall, or does it just mean until the time period of the second rainfall? And on to now the Mishnah. The Mishnah tells us, let's say a fellow says, Kainim Yayin She'eni Time L'Shana, Kainim, I'm not going to drink wine L'Shana, which means for this year. It doesn't mean for the duration of a year, it means for this year. Nes Abra Hashana, let's say the year got extended, the Chum decided to add on an extra month, Asr Ba Ube Yibura, he's asr to drink wine for the remainder of the year, and even that extra month. Let's say the fellow says Ad Rosh Adar until the beginning of Adar. So Ad Rosh Adar Harishon, his neder is Chal until the beginning of the first Adar. Let's say he says Ad Soif Adar until the end of Adar. So his neder is Chal Ad Soif Adar Harishon until the end of the first Adar. Now the Gemara focuses on the last part of the Mishnah. Alma, we see Stama de Adar de Ka'amar Rishonhu. That when a person says Stam Adar and he doesn't say which one he's talking about, then we assume he's talking about the first one. So let's say our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. The time you have a brayso Adar Rishon, if he's writing a star in the first Adar, Kaisev Adar Rishon, he writes the first Adar. Adar Shein, if he's writing in the second Adar, Kaisev, he writes Adar Stam, he doesn't have to write the second Adar. Divrei Meir, that's Meir's opinion. Rabbi Yehuda says Adar Rishon, if he's writing in Adar Rishon, Kaisev Stam Adar, he just writes Adar. Sheini, if he's writing in the second Adar, Kaisev Tinyon, he writes the second Adar. So we see that it's Rabbi Yehuda that holds that if a person writes plain Adar, that's referring to the first Adar, and that seems to be that's what our Mishnah is saying, so our Mishnah could be Rabbi Yehuda. Now Rabbi says, Afil Time Rav Meir, you can even say our Mishnah is Rav Meir. Hadiyada de Ma'aber Avrashasa Hadallah Yada. One's referring to that he knows that the year is going to be extended. One's referring to that he didn't know the year is going to be extended, which means that Bezdin didn't extend the year yet. So if Bezdin didn't extend the year yet, that means that plain Adar would be Adar Rishon. But if Bezdin extended the year, so then plain Adar would be Adar Sheni, because Adar Sheni is actually the main Adar when we have two Adars. That's because all the mitzvahs of Adar, namely Purim and all of its mitzvahs, are done in the second Adar, not in the first Adar. So really, our Mishnah could be Rav Meir. And right to this, Samachim Lo based on top of Tanya, we have a brisa. If a fellow says Ad Rosh Chodesh Adar until Rosh Chodesh Adar, Ad Rosh Chodesh Adar Rishon, his Neder is Chal until Rosh Chodesh of the first Adar. However, M'Haisa Shana Muberes, if it was a leap year, so then Ad Rosh Chodesh Adar Sheni, his Neder is Chal until the second Rosh Chodesh Adar. Now we're going to ask a question to bring out our point. Mechlal, do we infer from the Seif of the brisa, the Reisha Lav Muberes Askinon, that we're not talking about a leap year in the Reisha of the brisa? Now you technically could make that inference because the Seif of the brisa does say Im Haisa Shana Muberes, implying that we're only talking about an Iber in the Seif of the Brisa, not in the Reisha of the Brisa. But obviously that's not the proper way to learn the Brisa, because even in the Reisha we say Adar Rishon, implying that even in the Reisha we're talking about a situation where there's two Adars. So what do we see from here? Shma Mina, Hadapshita Loidima Abrashasa, Hadalayada. The Seif of the Brisa is talking about where he knew that it was an Iber, meaning they had already decided to extend the year, and that's why it means Adar Sheni, whereas in the Reisha of the Brisa we're talking about where he didn't know, where they hadn't extended the year yet, and therefore Adar means Adar Rishon. And not the last Mishnah of the Parak, and this is quite a unique situation where the Parak ends off with a Mishnah and doesn't end off with a Gemara. Now we're going to have a number of cases where even though the wording he used in his neder technically should mean one thing, in this particular situation it means something else. Rabbi Yehuda says, let's say the fellow says, Kainam yain she'eni time ad she'ha Pesach. Kainam, I'm not going to drink wine, ad she'ha Pesach. Now previously we've learned that when a fellow says ad she'ha, and he's referring to a time period that's set, such as Pesach or Sukkot, so his neder is chal until after that time period is finished. However, over here it's different. This person's kavanah was only up until the first night of Pesach, up until the time where it's normal for people to drink wine. This is referring to the 4 cases of wine that we drink Leil Pesach. So even though he said Ad She'ah Pesach, so technically he should be usher to drink wine till after Pesach, we know that he doesn't have intention to drink milk for the Arba Kaisis, and he obviously is going to be drinking wine, so obviously he only made his neder up until Pesach. Something similar, Amar, let's say the fellow said, Kainam Basar She'eni Time Ad She'ah Tzayim. Kainam, I'm not going to eat meat up until the fast, which is referring to Yom Kippur. Eine Asr Ela Ad Leilei Tzayim, he's only usher up until the night before the fast. Shalom Chavin Zeh Ela Ad Shasha Derech Bnei Adam because he only had intention to make this neder up until a point in time where people normally eat meat. He's obviously going to want to eat meat for his Suda Mafsekes, for his big Suda, Erev Yom Kippur, and he wasn't including that in his neder. Rabbi Yossi ben Aimer, Rabbi Yossi, his son, meaning Rabbi Yehuda's son, says, let's say the fellow says, Kainam shum she'eni tayim ad shetei Shabbos. I'm not going to eat garlic ad shetei Shabbos. Eini aser ela ad leilei Shabbos. He's only aser to eat garlic until Friday night. Shalai nischavin zeh ela ad shasha derech bnei adam lechol b'shum. Because this person only intended that he's going to aser himself in garlic until the time that it's normal for people to eat garlic, which is Friday night. Other unique cases of Nedarim, ha'am lechaver. Let's say a fellow tells his friend, Kainam shani nen lecha. Kainam, I'm not going to have benefit from you. Im einat abav v'nelta bincha kur echad shel chitim u'shtei chaviyah shel yayin. If you don't come and take a car of wheat and 2 barrels of wine from me for your son. And this is just a nice way of giving his friend a present. He's basically saying, I want to give you this present of wheat and wine, and if you don't take it from me, son, I'm not going to have benefit from you. So this fellow can be made for that neder even without going to a chacham. He could tell him, didn't you say this because of my kavod? You wanted to honor me by giving me this gift. Well, this is my honor by saying I don't want to take your gift, and therefore the whole neder would be batal. Something similar. If a fellow tells his friend, Kainam sha'at nenesli, Kainam, you're not allowed to have benefit from me. If you don't give my son a car of wheat and 2 barrels of wine. Rav Meir says, he's also to benefit from him until he gives it. Say, this fellow could be made for his neder without a chacham. He could tell him, you want to know what? It's like I got it from you, so you don't have to give it to me. A similar situation. Let's say they were pressuring him to marry his niece. But Amar, and he said, she's not ever have benefit from me. If a fellow is divorcing his wife, Amar, and the fellow says, my wife is not a benefit from me forever. Both these women, his niece and his wife, they are allowed to have benefit from him. Why is that? This fellow's intent in making this neder only had to do with ishos. It had to do with marital relations. He basically was trying to say, I'm not interested in marrying you, or I don't want to remain married to you, and marital relations is usher, but in terms of other things, because they are allowed to benefit from him. Something similar. Let's say a fellow is pestering his friend to come and eat by him, and in an attempt to get out of it, Amar, the fellow says, I'm not going into your house. I'm not tasting even a drop of your water. He's allowed to go into his friend's house and drink a little bit of cold water. His whole kavanah was just that he didn't want to sit down and have a whole meal where he's eating and drinking, and therefore he used this extreme lashon of, I'm not going to walk into your house, I'm not going to have even a drop of cold water. He's allowed to go into his house, have a little bit of cold water, he's just not allowed to sit down and have a whole suda. We're finishing the 8th parak of Masechtas Nedarim, just like we're zechah to finish this parak together. We should be zechah to finish the entire Masechah together.
Everyone should have a wonderful day. Excuse me.